That should be plenty of chairs for tonight too, I think.
Yeah.
We've got plenty of chairs just for the meetings. Okay. We don't put that one at the next meeting.
Anticipating city council.
Oh, we don't have city council tonight, it's planning commission. It's planning commission tonight. Which is, and I'm saying it's fine for that. Thank you. And you're on YouTube too?
Yeah, I don't have a YouTube password. They had that issue last time, and then Cody was using YouTube.
Cody, are you doing YouTube?
Yeah, we'll shoot. We're gonna go live.
Okay, so you can go ahead, Margie.
Yes, okay. So I'd like to call the meeting to order and begin with the roll call. Barbara, here. Robert,
Here.
Margie, here. Lars,
Here.
Jeff,
Here.
approval of minutes, none. Comments from the public, not on the agenda, no public. Statements of conflict of interest, none. Regular agenda items. Item A, election of PAC chairperson and vice chair. I'm stepping down today as your PAC chairperson. I've accomplished the goals I had about 2 years ago at the onset of this position, and now want to see someone new leading the PAC as it goes forward. I thank the past and present committee members, city staff, and council members and the wider community for their active support of art in public places. Thank each of you for your ardent service and for the enthusiasm, respect, courtesy, and recognition that you give your fellow members on this team. I wish each member the fulfillment of at least one of your dearest dream projects for the Public Arts Committee. Although traditionally, the vice president is nominated to fill a vacant chair position, our excellent vice chair, Jeff, does not wish to change his position, correct, Jeff?
That's correct.
Therefore, I nominate Robert Brent for PAC chair.
Okay, and is the sound on, Cody? It sounds like I'm not hearing anything in the speakers. Can you hear
Testing,
me?
testing, 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 testing,
Not-
testing, testing.
Fortunately, I wrote it down.
Okay.
Okay, we have to do it again?
Yeah, that sounds better.
Ah, Okay,
All right,
So
so it
it's from
sounds
the
like
very
this,
beginning?
sounds like it was being broadcast. So everyone in the room heard you. So I think we got the broadcast and we got what we need. So thank you.
okay, so you don't need recording,
Correct.
correct.
So thank you, Chair Thyssen, Ms. Thyssen, and thank you, Margie, for all of your work over the last couple of years that you've been our chair. The public, just as a point of order, the Public Art Committee does not have a annual switching of the guard. Some things like you saw, the mayor, vice mayor does have every first meeting in December. But Margie did let me know that she wanted to retire not from PAC, but just from being chair. So that's why we have agendized it. It wasn't on the forward agenda that I had sent out lately. But Margie had been talking to me about this potential. So the way, and I believe I sent out, just so everyone understood how the election of the chair and then the vice chair works. the first step is to take any nominations. And so, Margie, if you could officially open the nominations for chair, and then you can go of the Public Art Committee, and then you can go ahead and nominate. If you could do that part again, that'd be great for the
Okay.
record.
Fine. I now officially open nominations for chair for the PAC, and I nominate Robert Brett.
Okay. And then the next step is to call for any further nominations.
And call for any further nominations.
Lars, are you unwilling? You are senior.
I am unwilling. I am chairing another committee already, the design review board. But thank you.
I think it's fine, Robert.
Okay. Any other?
Didn't step back fast enough.
So, Margie, if there are no other nominations, then you would close the nominations
close
and
the
take
nominations.
any public comment,
Any
and then
public comment?
any
No.
committee comments.
Any committee comments?
No, I'm glad, but I just was surprised by this. I didn't realize that we were going to be doing this today, so I'm glad to be doing them. Just sorry you're leaving, Margie, leaving the position, but thank you very much for all your work.
You're welcome.
I'd just like to comment on the job you've done, Margie, in my time on the PAC. You've been very passionate. You're always well prepared. You do your research. You led us through the CSG and beyond, among other things. So I'm glad and happy to know that you're remaining on the committee, but also look forward to some new leadership of different personality, although I loved yours and will continue to on the PAC. Thank you, Margie.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you would ask if there's a second to the nomination.
Is there a second to the nomination?
I'll second.
And can I make a comment?
Yes. And now you can call for any further discussion.
Any further discussion?
That's when you would make a comment.
Um,
Discussing.
Robert has been very, very active and always stepped up to do work. I feel he has a really good sense of what the PAC is about and understanding of that and willingness to participate and to work as a group and include others. So I feel very good about passing that on. And as I said, some of the things I really wanted to accomplish as chair, I feel like I have this CSG and some of the clarification about the PAC and the beginning of clarification of the PAC's relationship to other organizations. So now I call for vote.
If there's no further discussion.
If there's no further discussion. Thank you, prompter.
Okay, so you can call for a roll,
Aye.
and we'll do this as a roll vote, so it's official. Member Langberg,
Aye.
Member Harris,
Aye.
Member Brent,
Abstain.
Vice Chair Strucker,
Aye.
and Chair Mills-Lyson.
Aye.
The motion passes 4-0 with one abstention. Abstention by Robert Brent, who is our new chair. And Margie, if you would take your little chair placard and
No. According to your note, I prefer to defer until the end of this meeting.
excellent. So we'll take the chair placard and move it over to Robert Brent. However, you have just designated outgoing chair to continue facilitating this meeting.
So typically that's like at the city council, as soon as they vote, they switch.
Correct. Yeah. As soon as it votes, usually for the committees that I run, folks aren't necessarily ready to, and I can, so I try to be a little bit more soft, and it's not exact Robert Rules of Orders, but of course the new chair can delegate in my mind just fine.
Now it's really going to be Robert's Rules of Order.
It will
Yeah.
be.
That's it.
What?
That's right.
What?
Robert's Rules of Order.
Oh.
Where's my gavel?
And so typically after election of the chair, there is election of a vice chair, which the new chair, but us designated, calls nominations for. And Jeff, no one's asked you about this, but I anticipate there may be some continuance, but
Is it necessary or can we leave it as it is?
I don't think it's necessary.
I don't think it's
because
necessary.
I'm just doing this
yeah,
on my
it's-
own schedule.
you're right. That's not actually necessary because you have just, and you explained why you not nominating Jeff because he declined. So yeah, actually, I think you're correct. It is just the nomination of the chair.
And I want to say
And-
too that, Carrie mentioned that the council, for example, has a certain schedule for rotating chairs, and we have not in the history of the PAC. And I wanted to say that I feel that's a good idea, that I think experience and history counts for a lot, and that's a valuable thing. And would you make it a rule that people have to switch every year, then to me, that shortens that and undermines it. And personally, I felt this was my time to switch. And Robert probably will have his own sense of that.
Whenever anybody else is willing.
Actually, I'll make a comment to that, Margie.
Yes.
I agree with you. Experience is important, but I've also seen instances where the chair stays on and on and on, and even if they're good, it's really nice to give other people the opportunity.
That has not been the case with the PAC, however.
And on that note, congratulations, Robert.
Yeah, really, Robert, congratulations.
And I thought condolences were in order.
Oh, come.
Just to calendar it forward, next January, we should have a little revisit and discuss among us whether we want to continue with officers as they are today, or if anybody else wants a chance, so to speak. So if you would put that in your long calendar.
Is there a minimum number of years or months that a chair holds office?
Well, certainly not a minimum because someone could move away and then just have
That's
to resign.
true,
So,
that's
you're
true.
right. Or just decide that they are not able to or not willing to. I mean, for instance, a couple of years ago, we had someone who was elected mayor and at the same council meeting then declined and reconsidered the motion, right? She decided she didn't want to be mayor. So that's probably the minimum, is that
Ah.
within the same
Oh.
meeting.
Ah.
But it is, there are some, so we're governed by the public art ordinance, which I think I've shared with all of you, and it's on our website. And that outlines how this committee operates. The Planning Commission does have different resolution that governs it. They have an ordinance and a resolution that governs how it runs its meetings. And that actually, they did talk about it being they do their elections the first meeting after the council has appointed or reappointed new members or something like, so that it's because they have rotating memberships. The Public Art Committee does not have such an ordinance. Or does not specify election of the chair on any specific time.
That's interesting. It seems kind of awkward that if it's all these committees are within the same city and the same area, that it isn't consistent.
Creative.
That they all do. Pardon me?
Creative.
Yeah. Well, I'm just curious. I mean,
Well,
it's
and I
interesting that
think-
they can be that flexible as a committee within a structure that has different regulations for each committee. Who made that decision? Did the public?
So the city council governs any ordinances, adopts ordinances. And so like recently they reduced the size of the planning commission. That was actually at the planning commission's request.
Mm.
It used to be 7 members plus an alternate. So it used to be 8 people. Now it's 5, which is more normal within most communities. They also dissolved the Park and Rec Committee at one point and designated the Planning Commission as overseeing Park and Rec issues. And so the City Council has ultimate authority over anything that's an ordinance. It doesn't mean that within each committee, you can create your own governing rules to some extent, assuming it meets public meeting laws and all of that. Like I said, the Planning Commission just revamped both their ordinance, which the council adopted, but also their internal rules via resolution to talk about that. And so there's some flexibility in that. The design review board also has an ordinance, and you could see it as not consistent, but you could also see it as each committee has its own needs and is able to do that
That's interesting.
as they feel
Okay.
is appropriate.
Yes.
Question.
Robert?
Forgive me, Carrie, for not reading the ordinance, but do we have terms and term limits, and what are they?
You do have terms and you don't have, there are no term limits. You do have terms though. And I'm just, actually, I was just looking at the design review board because the design review board also, their ordinance says shall select its own chair and its own meeting time. But other than that, when and how often you meet and all that other stuff is up to that board. So, and that's
On the website,
really
it says
difficult.
each person, when their term began and when it ends. And at the end period, then each member has a choice and can either stop being a member or can request and reapply to be a member. And there is no limit on the number of times that a
And how long is
person
the
can.
term?
I'm
4
look-
years.
4 years.
Thank you.
4 years.
I can't keep
Oh,
it
that's-
straight
so
because
you
there's,
reapply then?
Yes,
Oh,
you
that's
do. You have to
interesting.
reapply
Yes.
and then you have, your application has, and that happened. You did that?
Yeah.
Everyone has done that. And you don't remember.
I
You
don't
did.
remember reapplying.
Yes.
My term was
so
Anyway.
I don't, I
Yeah.
believe
We
both
haven't been here. 4 years.
Robert and
Oh.
Barbara are in their first terms, and actually
Right.
Jeff
Oh, I
as
beg your
well.
pardon.
Have you
My error.
reapplied?
I thought I recalled.
Yeah, I
it.
reapplied even
Okay.
though I haven't been on it
Okay.
for 4 years yet
So, yeah, so
because of
what
the
Okay.
position I filled.
was, yeah, so what happens, it's a 4-year term. If someone resigns midterm, and I believe we did have that when Warren Arnold retired. So that was an instance, it was kind of midterm within those 4 years. The 4 years doesn't restart. We announce a vacancy because of a resignation. And in that case, Vice Chair Strucker applied to that one to serve out the remainder of that term, however much long that is. And then they would need to reapply for that. For instance, we have a planning commissioner who was appointed 2 months ago. His term expires December 31st.
Wow.
So it was literally a 3 month, but he's reapplied. So it's, it's, but that's how that works. And so, yeah, so both Robert and Barbara, I believe that you're still within your first term. So you haven't reapplied and run into that. When that happens, so the way that works for the city is that we review with the city clerk all of our boards that are to look at who has their terms ending. And yes, you're Robert and Susie's right. It's all listed on the website. If you forget when your term is up, under the boards and committees and under your name, it'll show when. And if anyone ever sees an error, let us know, because sometimes we forget to update those. So it'll say 2022 when it's actually 2024. But it's we do recruitments for those because all of those terms end December 31st. For any board, commission, council, anything. Maybe not council, but the rest of those. So we will let you know when your term is up and ask you usually if you're interested in reapplying. We can provide you with your application that you'd used previously to make it easy for you because it's a fillable PDF, so you can just utilize that. So you won't just suddenly not know. Right now we do have Climate Action Committee positions open. We have we have 3 design review board positions open. We've received 2 applications. We still have not received applications for the general public position on that board. And then our planning commission recruitment is closed because we have, in the original time period, which closed last week, we did receive 2 applications for 2 positions.
So does a reapplicant literally contend with those others that come
Correct.
through?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it all goes through both reapplicants and new applicants are interviewed with the city council the same way you did initially. Yep.
But the city council makes the decision.
Correct. They'd appoint all, yes.
How often do you think a reapplicant doesn't get reinstated? I'm just
I have
curious.
never seen that happen.
Yeah, I'm just
I
curious.
think typically we don't get enough people interested. Certainly on design review board, we don't. And they have to keep
Yeah.
like asking and looking and drumming up interest.
Mhm.
Well, you
So
never
that's
know.
my
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
It's
pretty,
a whole new
But for the
generation.
PAC, there has been, I have seen with my own and others, that when a member reapplies, there are other people that are also contending for that same one or two spots.
Mhm.
But in the PAC, everyone who is a member who has reapplied has been accepted. Doesn't mean it's
past,
automatic.
past performance does not
Past,
guarantee
right.
future results, just like
Exactly.
all the financial people say, right? It's an open, the council can do what they, as they see fit.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, should we move on to item B? Update on NEDCON installation.
I have
Carrie?
that here.
Sure. So this was requested by some of the committee members and felt this was a really good idea to get a more kind of formally laid out schedule from Ned Kahn and his team. As I had mentioned previously, they had requested that we do a site visit to firm up some of the installation logistics as well. And so Margie and I actually met with them end of November. Wow, it seems like so long ago. And looked at and kind of reconfirmed the location for the sculpture. Met with a couple of their contractors who are working on the installation, and talked with both Ned and Greg, who's one of his associates helping him with the installation logistics. And so they were able to, we did ask them to also provide a schedule, which they've done, for the continued work and the actual installation. And so what we have here is what they provided to us. As noted, the building permit is ready to go. I don't know if the foundation. So the foundation is part of that building permit. There is
Excuse me, Carrie, can you
Yeah.
put that on the screen?
Oh,
I
sorry.
don't think we received that.
I did.
You
I
did?
have it.
It was in the packet, yeah.
Mm,
But I'm happy to
sorry.
put it on board. Sorry, I
I missed it.
for some reason just thought you were looking at my screen. Not sure why.
Sorry. No, my error.
Let me see if I can't. There we go.
And while you're doing that, I just had a question on the heading. It says to the planning commission.
Oh,
Is there a reason for that?
That
that just
that is a typo.
Okay,
My apologies.
fine. No
We,
worries.
we have templates and we clearly grabbed the wrong template for this one.
Just want to make sure we weren't being undermined.
No, not at all.
We're expanded.
Hostile takeover.
All of a sudden, we're also members of.
Okay.
So just in general, since this is in your packet, the foundation installation is happening this month. They do want to make sure that so just to be clear, the foundation is like 15, 20 feet by 15, 20 feet, kind of a big X. That is actually will be a couple feet underground. And then there are sort of, not to get too technical, but there are helical piers that go down into the soil to hold it in place. But that's when we say foundation, that'll kind of hold the structure from toppling over and all that kind of stuff. That's being installed this month. And there is some working around the weather that they need to do, as noted. They will be replanting because the intent is that by the time the superstructure is there and it's kind of available, that the grass and everything looks natural. The last thing they want is for it to look like it's, a brand new building site and be different from the rest of the native grasses that are out there.
Okay, that was my question. So the grasses that are already there are native.
Yes. Yeah. We've done a lot of restoration with the Laguna Foundation out there. So yeah, so that
Okay,
is
thank you.
the intent is that we re-landscape as is currently there. And then they're looking at February for the final fabrication of the pieces and installation in March. And I think given the timeline the PAC had previously noted in terms of an opening, it actually seems like it will end up being pretty seamless in terms of a opening ceremony. We had talked about organizing in that March, April timeframe for after the rains. And that should be before the Laguna Trail that's going in right by the site, before that construction starts.
Hmm.
So that will be, so that area won't be under construction, which is kind of the other thing I'm trying to keep in mind. So
And did you say the permits are all?
the
have all
building
been
permit
issued?
is ready to go or issued. I mean, there's no cost for it, right? It's the city permit, so we waive those fees.
Mhm.
I'm not sure on the encroachment permit is required for the foundation contractor because they have to come in. But the building review of the foundation is done, and yeah.
Can I make a comment about the verbiage on this, especially the foundation part of it, which is odd that it says on or after December 12th. Isn't it usually on or before? I mean, that's kind of open-ended, isn't, it's not really a.
So that's what they provided in terms of when their contractor
That's today,
was available to do the work. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
So, but after could mean anything, which would affect everything else.
Well, the second bullet point
Yeah.
gives the expected
Should
limits
be.
of that.
Yeah. Installed by December
Mhm.
19th, 21st,
That- yeah.
weather permitting. Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah. They estimated that it would only take 2 to 4 days to do the foundation installation.
okay.
Does anyone recall when this particular project was first initiated in terms of a date? Out of
It was
curiosity.
before I got here,
It's-
but it was on a completely different site. So
Yeah,
that's obviously. yeah.
I think we're in 6 years at this point.
Okay.
And
Thanks.
it could be a little bit,
And
could be
several-
closer to 7.
And several different designs as well.
Yeah.
There's a long,
Yeah,
long history.
locations and designs. I'm aware of that,
Convoluted.
but I was just curious about the overall timeline. So, okay. Thank you.
And will we have an update at our next meeting about the progress of these dates?
Yes. Yeah. We can. Yeah. There should be, work done by then. The foundation should be done. And obviously that'll,
Okay, great.
we can provide any updates.
Also, I want to say that Ned discussed a bench, and that we've talked about that before when we were with him, and that the tree that fell down from his neighbor onto his property, a huge tree, he said there was a section of it that is perfect for a bench,
Oh,
and that he is going to install that there, and we talked about the location for that.
wow.
lovely.
Is that like gratis?
Yes,
Oh, that's very
Is there enough
nice.
for 2 benches?
no. But maybe someday there will be another bench.
Oh, that's nice.
Okay, any questions, other questions, comments on the schedule or anything else on the installation? Okay, moving on. Boy. Sculpture Garden Call Review and Selection. And I want to say that thank you to Muzi
Mm-hmm.
for all your wonderful work and the flyer and everything else. And we do have 3 submissions. We have a total of 5 available platforms. And I've been thinking about this. And so it leaves us with 2 that are not. And personally, I'm not too concerned about that. I've felt for a while that especially after we go through the commission, the 3rd commission, and people apply for that, there's only one piece out of however many applications we're going to get that will be selected, and there will be other applications. Perhaps some of those artists would like to offer their submission or another piece of theirs work for the 2 remaining, and we can organize that accordingly.
If this is the time when you want to discuss that, I have a possibility for us to meditate on.
Yeah.
Are you, is anyone here aware of the 8 whale sculptures in marble made by Warren Arnold and placed at various sites along the coast?
I
We
am,
did discuss this
Last time.
last meeting.
Yeah.
For a while, we discussed it.
Well,
And, yeah, go
I
ahead.
wanted to be sure that we were short of submissions before pursuing it. The southernmost one at Ventana Inn in Big Sur is this one.
mhm.
And if we were willing to have a permanent installation on the CSG, I am willing to pursue this. I was in contact with Ventana at the time when they took it down and was prepared to go and get it, and I was searching for a new site for it when everything exploded at the Art Center and I left. And now that all that is back in order, looking at the Art Center's website, there is no mention of this sculpture series, which they own, and I suspect do not know that they own. And I didn't want to bring it up if we had 5 sculptures to put on the pads. But as we don't, I would bring it up with them and with Warren if we would want to get it and place it there. And in that case, if I were compensated for the gas, I would drive down there in my pickup and get it and bring it back.
I just
Well,
wanted to
we
say
have-
thank you, Robert, for bringing that up, reminding us about that suggestion. I would recommend that we consider the submissions that we have and then
Well, I
revisit
thought
that
this was out of order,
recommendation.
but as Margie
Oh.
went there, I thought, well, okay.
Right, because
let's talk about it now.
we could not approve any of these 3, and then we'd have 5 spaces.
This is
Just for
possible.
example.
Okay, so I would say that in my recollection that for today and probably as you're saying, Jeff, after we've gone over the submissions, what was on the agenda was also discussion of the future scheduling for the public sculpture garden, community sculpture garden. And one of the options is to discuss permanent installations so that we can talk about that after. So I would suggest that we now move to looking at the submissions.
Okay.
Yes? Okay.
Excuse me, but are you saying that somewhere on this agenda, Margie, that we're going to talk about other possibilities? Because I don't see it.
Sculpture garden call review.
And selection.
Well, that's, yeah, it could be included under the
Okay.
review.
That's fine.
Okay, so if people have had time to look at can you put those up possibly, Carrie? It would do it one at a time, or I guess so.
Yes.
okay.
Actually, I will do that. And the other thing that I do have that we've used before, which I can bring up if we need to, is the rating sheet that we had used to walk through them
Yes.
previously.
Yes.
And so I'm just actually pulling that up as well. Okay. So do you want to start with any particular ones?
Well, in terms of just the ones how they've been sent to us, the first one is Peter Crompton's.
Okay.
Can I
Yes.
interrupt him? I'd like to
Sure.
make a recommendation, actually, that we start with Mirka Nasters first, if no one has any
Which one?
protest to that.
Which
Merkin
one?
Naster.
Mirka Naster, the second artist
Oh.
in the sequence.
And the reason is just curious.
The reason is personally, I feel like we might be able to make a decision that will help us guide the other ones in terms of how many platforms there will be remaining
Okay,
after
Alright.
considering this one.
okay. It's okay with me. Anybody else? All right, so let's look at that one.
Okay. And I will also just kind of review the criteria that, or the way we've done it before. I'm actually going to pull that up first. So, and you can, of course, evaluate however you'd like to. But how you've reviewed it before, the different criteria have been statement of intent, resume, images of work, overall completeness, and any pros or cons. Those are the types of things that you've discussed with the last call. So with that, I do already have her letter. So this is Wheels for Peace. And I'm assuming you want the images is what you're actually
Please.
going for. There we go. Okay. Okay. So there is the first image, and please let me know if you want me to go, how you would like me to go through these.
This is, yeah, that's.
I can speak to it first since I made the recommendation. In terms of my understanding of her description of this piece, and then based on the photographs, as far as the pros, I think it's a great concept. It's a concept that I think would be well received in Sebastopol. However, the layout does not really seem to fit with the kind of layout and structure that we have in the CSG. So unless somebody else read something different from me in her description or sees another way to recommend that she look at it differently and resubmit, this is not one that I feel strongly about moving through.
The
Jeff?
beginning, she says, 5 wheels arranged in a circle circumference according to the space available.
Right.
Does
They have to
does
be
that mean
virtually-
all of these have to squeeze onto one platform, or would it be
Well,
like one is
I-
one possibility?
I think
She suggests driving them 2 feet into the ground and how they would be mounted, and so the white one would be on the pad, and the other ones would be in the ground around it. But certainly the spacing that it currently has in the photo is not one that we could replicate. They would virtually have to be touching in order to constrain them to a space that we have.
Or if we wanted to totally re-envision it and let, there is other space around, but I'm concerned about durability for the ribbons, and also if things are
Well, she
put in
addresses
2
that
feet.
as some type of
Yeah.
durable
It's like
polypropylene.
parachute material.
Yeah,
What about just one of these rather than
Well, I
considering
think she-
numerous?
I think she considers the whole thing the sculpture.
Yeah, I get that, but that's kind of lofty when wasn't what we were offering. I mean, if we're talking about modification, maybe one would be effective enough on a concrete pad.
An alternative, we had discussed things on the other side of the path. And if she was willing for this piece to be linear instead of circular, it could go along the path on the north side and not on one of the pads at all.
Then we'd have to go through a whole process of getting permission and whatever else we need to use that space, which we have not done before.
And wouldn't it be pretty long? I mean, that'd take up a lot of.
It depends on how far apart they are.
I see this piece as something that would be more of a temporary exhibit. I would see this at a festival. I would see this at other types of events like that, which would allow for the spacing. I don't think the structural elements in this are strong enough, and I don't think they're sturdy enough, or the girth or the diameter based on the other pieces we've already had that we've had vandalized. I do not think this one is going to make it if it were installed the way it is.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Me too. It's a nice idea, but it's just not, yeah.
I wish we could think of some, like Jeff was saying, at some festival or something, I wish we could think of something to offer.
Well, if it's, I agree that they don't feel very maybe sturdy enough, but she's not addressing putting it in a concrete pad. So if this is drilled and epoxied into one of our concrete pads, it would be sturdy enough.
Well, I would suggest to her that she weld a steel base to it that we can bolt to the pad. If it was
But
going to be on a pad
in
at
either,
all.
yeah, the same, what I'm saying and you're echoing is it's not this installation we're asking for, right, into just dirt. It's into a piece of concrete. So if we like it enough, then we sort of give her guidance to adapt the base to go onto the concrete. But I guess we would have to say then it's only one, or it's kind of very close in
It'd have to be
circumference
very close.
around the pad.
I like it. I just think even in that, given all that, it would still be easily vandalized. I mean, it just to me, it's like, we talked about the rebar was asking for it. If you see these little strips of ribbon and people to grab and pull and
Me too.
disshape the thing or cut.
Well, in order
It's
to read
just-
it,
I
you have
just-
to almost touch it and open it up to.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
do.
I
Well,
think it's-
so if everybody, if someone walks away with a piece of peace, is that a bad thing?
Well, if they destroy and
I'm not, she might not like it, but I don't think that's a bad thing that someone comes away with a different language, the word peace in a different language. That's not so bad.
if they took
Well-
one and they didn't misshape it. bend
As
it,
we
break
decided
it.
on the spacing of the pads and the additional pads, we were trying to space them so that a sculpture that fits on the pad does not feel too close to the sculpture on the next pad over. And since this one would be significantly bigger than the pad, I think we would have a feeling of encroachment
Yeah,
on adjoining sculptures, which is why I was saying that if we're on the other side of the path and linear, okay, but otherwise I don't see it fitting any of the pads that we have.
Unless it's one.
yeah, and when those ribbons start flaring, they're going to be touching whatever's adjoining them too.
Well, but if there's one in the center of this pad and it's tall,
Well,
It-
it's all, yeah.
it may not be as grabbable, and it would certainly fit. It's just not, it's transforming her piece from 5,
But then
6 to 1.
So-
it could be hard to read if it were higher. If it's.
They are bicycle wheels, and so they're approximately 26 inches in diameter. And let's just right, that's 30 inches.
And
Let's assume that she was willing to do an installation with 4 of the colored ones and the white one. And the white one is in the center of the pad. And the others are at the corners and just outboard from the corner, maybe 6 inches. So it's a condensed thing, but there's still room to walk between in order to look at the white one. Would that be an acceptable installation
So
to
I,
Do
us?
we have enough
Yeah.
space for all that? I mean, in between?
We do.
my
Okay.
concern with that is that now we're stepping into her realm of being the artist a little bit too much. And I would like to now make a motion actually that we deny this submission as it's described and as it's pictured. Yet out of respect for the artist, we follow it up with a letter to her about our concerns and our suggestions if she would like to resubmit it.
Sure. Would the way I was just describing it be acceptable to us if we suggested it?
I think it's just asking for vandalism and destruction and,
Well,
I don't think someone, let me
it's
just finish.
vulnerable
I
to
don't
that
think
where it is.
I don't think someone's just going to take one little ribbon.
No,
And
it's-
if we want to change our perspective on what this sculpture garden is about and that it's something that's just more ephemeral, and it's fine if things get destroyed, they're only meant to be there for however months before they're destroyed, that's a different perspective.
Well, it's
But I
not-
think this is a very vulnerable and enticing
One of the things, I'm concerned about the fluttering of these banners. If they're too close together, they literally could start
They
weaving
could.
with one another. And then you have this kind of mess of
It's true.
of ribbon that can't be read. And so there'd have to be almost the breadth of the whole thing would have to be designed so they would never touch. Otherwise, they literally, when the wind blows, are going to start knotting each other. That's just the way it would happen. Yeah, I mean,
Well, I think to Jeff's point, it's, I could imagine reinventing this to work on the
Mhm.
site, but is that what we're considering? Right, we're considering an application. These all look, the color ones are at the same height. If they're close together, they could do what you're saying, Barbara. If they were at many different heights, they might not.
right.
But that's
That's
not
true,
what we're
too.
looking at. Can you scroll up to the upper picture? Next one. I think, to me, this is a very compelling image.
I agree.
And to have a kinetic piece, with this color and even words, whether you can fully read them or not, that doesn't bother me. But it's clearly like someone is sitting on the ground taking this photo, or lying on the ground even. If this were real perspective of someone standing there and this was, 10 feet high and well structured, it could be a really beautiful piece. But it's not what's being
I agree.
presented. Right?
I think it's compelling and would draw people to the site out of curiosity, and which could enhance the rest of the sculptures.
So I'd like to revisit my earlier comment about making a motion, and I'm going to divide it up into two parts now, and I'm going to make a motion that we deny this submission as it stands.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion?
Well, that includes our suggestion of.
No, he
He
just
said,
did
"As
one at a
submitted,
time.
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
not
One at
doing
a
that."
time. We're
Okay,
doing
but
this
that-
first one.
nice,
We're
then
talking
that
about
letter
this first
then
one.
would encourage this person to resubmit with alterations.
That would be the second motion.
Okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
so, all in favor of the first motion?
Before we vote, I'd like to say something.
Sure.
So I think, so we had we had submissions in one of the last rounds we denied, with no sense of like, oh, if they just change that a little bit, it'd be so much better. Why don't we suggest that to them? So how do we actually do that? We're hurting for entry. So then
Well-
that's, I think it's a nice idea to go back to someone if we think it's sort of promising enough to go to do, to say like, how about, we like your piece, but it needs X, Y, and Z.
I think you're commenting on the second motion that we don't have on the floor yet.
Well, since it's not on the floor, I'm making a comment about
is
it
on the-
now.
right.
It is on the
Okay.
Well,
floor.
yeah, I agree, because using the term deny is kind of like shutting a door.
Well, if I may, as the board president after the board chair after the end of this meeting, I would handle this with a phone call and an invitation to visit the site and discuss.
Before we
Discuss
do
with whom?
anything,
The artist,
For who to discuss with the artist?
any two of us.
with a report back to the rest of us.
Yes. And just stand there on the site with the artist and say, it won't fit here the way you had it. Let's talk ideas about whether there is an appropriate way to fit that piece on this site,
Mhm.
even if it doesn't use every element of it. What are you willing to do in order to make it fit within what we could do? And then we will reconsider a submission based on that.
Well, I appreciate that. I was wondering if this artist had indeed even visited the CSG site. I'm thinking not.
I'm thinking not, and that's why I would go that way and try and be personal with it and say, well, let's
Wow,
see if there's a solution.
I would assume that any artist would visit the site that they're applying toward,
Well,
but I guess not, huh?
maybe not.
Where's she located?
I don't know. That piece is.
No, where's she located?
She was in Poland.
So, wait a minute,
At one
where-
point.
Where was it, Robert?
Well, that site is the
forget.
one in Alexander Valley
Right, okay.
with all that chip down there. So.
Uh,
I just wanted to comment that we are all, of course, assuming that we will be, and that's fine about that, but that the discussion includes the assumption that we are willing to revisit and extend deadlines and so on and so on. Just FYI.
Well, I wouldn't put it in that context. She met the deadline, and so it's a discussion of whether there's a way we can accept it.
Okay.
We don't have a deadline on when we accept.
We don't, yeah, we do today. It's on the agenda.
Well, it's on the agenda, but that doesn't mean we couldn't revisit one. We didn't.
Yeah, I met the criteria of being submitted.
Okay,
I'd like to be flexible with it.
Do we have a motion?
We do.
We have one on the floor. Do you want to amend it, or should we just vote on it as is?
Vote on it as is, and then move to another motion if one is proposed.
Okay. So you want to repeat that, everyone have it, or you want to repeat it?
He just said, we're denying
We're denying it. Okay.
it. As submitted.
So let's see if we can do a voice vote, otherwise we'll do a roll call. All in favor of Jeff's proposal?
Aye.
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 Nay.
All opposed?
I opposed, yeah.
Oh, okay. So the proposal
Okay.
passes, what?
Yeah, so I will just, for the record, note this so that it's, since we're a hybrid meeting, we have to do things a little bit differently. So there were four
Yes.
in favor,
Yes,
so the
and-
motion passes with
Yes.
one opposed, which was committee member Harris.
Yes. Sorry.
In the hybrid
We'll be
world,
more
you can't just
specific
do a
and
voice
formal.
vote because
Sorry
people
about that.
can't tell who's saying what. So
Okay.
I just need to read it
Very
into the
good.
record.
Okay.
So now I'd like to make a motion that PAC representatives contact this artist and discuss either a potential meeting on site and or discuss some of the pros and cons that we have about this particular submission with the possible intention that she might modify and resubmit if we need to consider it as a resubmission. That's pretty lengthy motion, so if someone would like to restate that in their own words in a much simpler, shorter way, I'd appreciate it.
Discussion?
I think it's fine the way it is. It's inclusive.
I think we should include a incomplete list of our suggestions and concerns.
I
for
think
the
that's fine. I
people
don't think
are
that needs
meeting
to be
with her.
included in the motion.
What?
I said, I think that's fine. It's a discussion. It does not need to be included in the motion that was made. So
Motion.
we could,
The motion needs a second, so.
I'll
So let me,
second.
may I restate the
second.
motion then? Committee?
Sure.
The motion is to contact the artist and discuss next steps.
Okay.
so I,
You like the more inclusive one. Why don't you make a motion?
so there is, hold on,
Wait,
guys.
wait.
Robert's Rules of Order. There was a motion made.
And second.
It was
No.
not yet seconded.
Oh,
Right.
She's withdrawing her second
Well, I should-
because it was restated.
Okay, so there was a motion made and it was seconded. The person who made the motion then amended your motion. And that was not seconded by that person. So there's a motion on the floor right now, which is to contact the artist to discuss next steps. And that's it for the motion. That does not yet have a second.
And when can we discuss this?
And if there's a second, then we can discuss it.
I second.
And
Okay, so now you have a second.
Or
So-
you could let it fail for lack of.
to kick off any discussion,
Okay, I'll kick it off.
we can now discuss, and I would be happy to start the wheels in motion. Oh, thank you. Just came up, but in terms of kind of drafting, just a list of our concerns and or suggestions from what I've heard of us all discuss today at this meeting and share with one or the entire committee as needed to just kind of get things going as well as deciding the contact for this artist. So I'm volunteering to do a little bit of the prep work, so to speak, before we actually contact her.
Can I ask a question to staff? When somebody is denied their submission, how do you let them know? It's just sort of a letter that says thanks, but no thanks.
So we can take into consideration whatever the committee directs us to do.
Okay.
So if it sounds like in this case, you're interested in the sculpture, but it does not fit as presented, and that's why it was denied. But you are interested in talking with the artist to see if she would consider other possibilities that would allow it to fit better. And I think actually I'll say personally, the first motion was a lot clearer, which was to contact the artist to discuss potential modifications for a resubmission that would fit the site for future PAC consideration. I believe that's what
Right,
that's what I
so-
typed anyway,
but-
as I'm trying to take notes.
But
I
if,
should have said you reread it.
if formally we've denied her the application, so then it seems like that's the proper protocol is the city calls her up or writes her and say, your application's been denied, comma, but we're interested to talk to you more.
Correct. Yeah.
I think this is a perfect teaching moment, and I keep getting back to this. We have the opportunity now to create kind of a policy or procedure, which we've had with other things in our tenure here. And I think this is a good opportunity to, in the future, whenever this happens, whenever there's, a bunch of observations that we're curious enough about to contact the artist with possible, differences, the word deny to me is a kind of a deal breaker. If I got that, I would say, well, I don't know if I'd even read any further that there was any possibility of doing anything to the sculpture. So I'm concerned about that verbiage and kind of the atmosphere that it's creating.
But I think Carrie made the point that the staff can say essentially whatever we want them to say.
Right,
So
but-
we don't have to phrase it
Say
so it's
deny
color.
as
I
presented.
seriously object to that.
Let me just wait a second. Let me just finish my thought though, because this is almost like a form letter. And instead of saying your sculpture has been denied, your sculpture is still under review by PAC. And we would like to, talk with you or meet with you or whatever to move forward with the possibility that this is accepted, rather than it's denied but, or denied and. That's kind of an awkward thing for someone to receive, I would think.
I would say denied as presented. And in terms of a teaching moment, the very fact that the PAC is considering discussing with an artist any alteration of the presented piece is a first. That in the past, and I'm not saying it should be one way or another, I just want you to know that in the past, different committee members have felt very, very strongly that artists should not be asked to make any amendments.
If I may, that's not what she said in her application. She said that the diameter was variable. She showed us a picture of them quite far apart, which would not work for us. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a diameter that would work for us, and she was non-specific about that. So a discussion as to what that might actually be is, in my mind, perfectly in order. And I also object to the notion that staff should be assigned to do this. This is a conversation for this committee to have personally with that artist, if we want to have any chance at resolving something that would work because we like it.
How would you phrase it then?
Well,
Tactfully.
yeah.
So
And
Literally.
if I may, just as I'm hearing what you're saying, and I think I'm hearing what everyone's saying. What I would communicate as staff is the committee was not able to accept your submission as presented. However, they are interested in talking with you to see if there are modifications that could be made to help so that it fits our site.
Mhm.
Okay, and again.
And then it would
because you
have to come
didn't
back to the
specify
PAC
the
for,
diameter, that is incorrect. And if I make the phone call as chair of the committee, I would say, we are confused between your specification about diameter, which doesn't exist, and the photo we saw, which if replicated would not fit the site. So could we meet on the site?
Well, that's only
And
one
talk
thing
about it.
we're considering is the
Well,
diameter.
and then as an on-site discussion, because whether whether the ribbons get knotted together has to do with the diameter. And then there's height issues about them and structural issues about how it's going to be mounted, all of which is stuff to resolve
good.
in
And
So
person.
I would-
maintenance
I would-
and the vulnerability and durability.
All
And
that,
I would
yeah.
include all that, but not just, not just focusing upon the diameter, because if we get to the site and all of a sudden we've got 10 other things we're concerned about, let this person be prepared to address them.
Sure, absolutely.
in
I would
addition to
bring
the-
up all those things in the
Okay.
phone conversation.
And one more thing, I'm really curious about this philosophy that you're mentioning, that other considerations have never, they've been kind of forbidden to make the suggestion that there are alterations that could be made to the pieces.
No, people felt very
I've never heard
strongly
of
on
that.
that.
Really? Geez, that's kind of,
And
Right,
it's,
yeah.
I'm not saying I agree with one opinion or another. I'm just letting you know
okay.
that things are shifting and it's okay.
Well, there is
As far
one
as I'm
sculpture
concerned.
on the site that was modified by the artist when it was placed.
That's different. Rather than the committee asking an artist to change their submission.
That sounds like we're asking an artist to conform to something that suits our fancy in a way. That's not what's happening. And we're trying to work with the artist so that we can make this happen. I would find that encouraging if I were an artist.
Sure,
Okay.
So
and it
wouldn't
could be
it-
a simple question that, is it adaptable? And she says no, then we're
Right.
done.
Or are you
Yeah.
willing,
Yeah.
are you interested and willing to make any modifications should they be suggested to you? If an artist says, no way, I'm not, this is it,
Right.
then that's different.
Okay,
It's up to-
so
So
let's-
wouldn't it be
let me
better
finish. It's
if-
up to that person, the artist, to decide whether or not they're willing to work with us.
Okay, rather than spend an inordinate amount on one of these three, can we get let's see, is there a motion right now it wasn't seconded?
you seconded it,
Oh, I
Margie.
did.
So let me
Right.
restate the motion. And then let's just kind of try to do this piece by piece. So right now there's a motion on the floor. Vice Chair Stucker moved.
Stucker.
Thank
Nope.
you.
Only one R at the end.
Thank you.
Modify
Move
that.
to have PAC contact the artist to discuss next steps. That was the entirety of the motion.
I think that's
However,
good
that
enough.
is, Member Mills Dyson seconded.
Okay, so can we vote on that one?
One last piece of discussion.
Go for
I
it.
think that we should rescind the first motion. That we are not denying it. We don't have enough information to accept or deny. We need to meet, talk about our concerns and see if there is
A way to go
a
forward.
way to go forward.
Okay, so staff, just to make sure we're following Robert's Rules of Orders properly,
I can tell you that.
if I do want to rescind that motion and then replace it with my original motion, which you typed up, unless you already deleted
Okay,
it.
so I haven't deleted it, I've just spaced it down. Here's the proper procedure at this moment. There's a motion on the floor that needs to be voted on. Or the person who made the motion can rescind that. But there is a motion and a second, so typically you would vote on that. The motion and vote to deny has already been completed. However, under Robert's Rules of Orders, someone can make a motion to reconsider that vote. And that would be the appropriate way to deal with if you wanted to undo the denial.
So as the author of the second motion that was seconded, I would like to rescind that motion. And then,
Okay, so the motion so the motion on the floor, move to have the PAC contact the artist to discuss next step, is being withdrawn by the
The author
so
of
to
the
speak.
motion,
Yeah.
correct?
I need to get a drink of water.
Okay,
And then I'd like to make a new motion and would request that you, Carrie, please read
okay,
the
so,
former motion that you saved.
so this would be, so do you first want to deal with the denial thing? Because right now, the piece has been denied.
Right.
Well, no, because that,
Okay.
in my mind, that was the first step, and now we're taking the second step with this artist's submission.
Okay,
Well, but Robert, you wanted to rescind that first.
Yeah.
So you could make a motion to remove that approved motion,
May I do
right?
that?
Isn't that what you?
so at this point, we need the chair who left the meeting. Margie,
Yes.
you have two people trying to make motions at the same time. You need
Ah.
to recognize one of them.
Okay.
If this
I'm
is
It can
Right, so
either
on-
be Robert Brent or Jeff Stucker.
I was going to rescind the denial so that
Yes.
we clear the,
Right. And Jeff, is that okay with you?
Yes.
Okay.
But
so
it
let's-
has to be a Robert
Yeah,
makes a
I
motion.
move that we rescind the denial and
Just leave it at
then
that.
go on.
Okay. So, and I'll second that, and
Then we-
then we can vote on that. So,
Okay,
Jeff?
hold on, Margie. This
Sorry.
these are actions, so I actually need to take notes on all of these. So let's just slow it down just a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, so Chair Brent has moved to reconsider the motion for the vote to deny. Deny the application. Margie seconded.
She
Yes.
did.
Okay, now you can do discussion.
Oh, discussion? Good.
Call the vote.
Call the vote. Barbara?
Okay,
Yes.
Robert?
Aye.
Margie? Aye. Lance?
Lars, aye.
Lars? God, you know why I'm doing that.
Jeff, aye.
Okay, motion passes
motion
Next
passes
motion?
To
unanimously.
rescind.
unanimously to rescind. Okay,
Okay.
next motion in place of that? Jeff?
I'm
Okay, did you want me, now
asking Carrie to
can
read it
I?
now. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so this was a motion to contact the artist to discuss modifications and modifications so that it would fit the site and resubmission for reconsideration by the PAC, or just, you know,
Modifications and concerns.
Yeah.
thank you.
And clarification, comma, modifications, because you were
So,
saying it's
so this
not
was,
clear.
I'm just reading text that was done before.
Yes.
Any
Right.
one of you can be recognized by the chair and try to make the motion if you, in better words than what I just read.
Yes, I just did that. I recognize myself and I put clarification, comma.
You didn't make a motion, Margie. So
I thought we were.
I
I thought we were
move
forming-
that we,
I move that we
Wait.
add the word clarification, comma.
No.
No.
You got to say that you want me to do it.
It's-
Yes, go right ahead.
go for it.
It's like Twister.
I move that we
Thank you.
contact the artist directly to discuss specifications and concerns about the piece before we have any vote to accept or deny.
I second that.
Okay, discussion?
I was just going to add that I just typed up something in terms of a contact with the artist, and, you know, it's a draft, right? But the PAC is interested in your piece, but has some concerns about its fit, as shown and described in the CSG. If you're open to potential modifications to your submission, we would propose meeting you at the site to discuss next steps. I know that's pretty short, maybe
No,
succinct, but
that's
it's just
fine.
something to kind
I
of
don't think
kick
we-
off that,
Good.
maybe those next steps if this is
Yep.
approved.
Well done.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
That helps.
So, but Robert has a motion
We have a second.
and there's a second. And so discussion on that motion. No discussion. Call for vote. Barbara,
I,
Robert,
Aye.
Margie, aye. Lars,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
motion passes.
Excellent, thank you.
And then we could make a motion to use Jeff's letter, and then we also perhaps may select the two people from the PAC to go and speak if the person agrees.
I think we have one phone call, and if we meet at the site, are we limited to two?
Yes.
Okay,
oh, that's right.
And I would suggest Robert and Jeff.
that's fine.
I'm fine with that.
Jeff, you want to make the phone call or me?
Yeah, I'm happy to contact Merkra.
Okay,
Okay, so we do need to vote on that, or can we just agree on that? Okay, good. All right, can we go on to the next?
And
Proposal,
one,
submission?
just
Yes.
one note on that, when you do meet on the site, could you let us know? Because there may be things that like, from a site perspective, I might be able to help with, just because of the rest of the park. Like, for instance, one of the things I was thinking of was like, well, maybe you could, attach some of those to the fence at the creek or something like that, or, expand a little bit beyond. And so that's something that staff would end up having to coordinate with Public Works and others. So I think it'd be helpful if we had a staff rep there.
Okay, I'd like to move on to Robert Mick something or other.
Robert Michael Smith.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. And discussion.
Well, that piece is granite. It was designed in a computer and a 3D printed model, a small one made, sent to the Philippines where it was mined and carved and shipped back. It weighs about 400 pounds. And he likes to set pieces that way. There are a number of them at his house on Laguna Road, which is, I'd been driving past for years and years, and I finally decided to just stop and say hello. And I met him and told him about the submission
nice.
process and so on. And after a couple of nudges, he submitted.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
So are we open now? Or no?
Discussion.
Okay. When I first saw it, I thought, I hope nobody falls on it.
It would be taller than that.
Okay,
The
good.
plinth
It's very-
would be about 4 feet tall,
Mhm,
and the
Well-
top of the piece around 6.
okay.
Yeah, it says 82 inches above the concrete pad.
I
Right, 7 feet.
It's almost 7 feet, yeah.
I think it's very handsome and interesting looking. When you just were talking about it, and this is another self-teaching moment about it being designed on a computer. And I know that signs of the times, it kind of gives me the creeps because I'd rather somebody directly designed it without using AI to help or whatever. But I know I can't, that's kind of archaic thinking, I would assume. I don't know if that needs polishing or
It is
bird drop.
polished.
I know, but I mean in the future for
Oh,
upkeep.
I don't know.
Bird droppings, moss, anything that can adhere to, that could grow on it or be something that we have to make sure is, to make it look good like that continually, do we have to worry about maintenance? Because
He's in his 70s. He's a very mature artist. He has pieces all over the world.
I'm glad he
Um,
submitted. Thank you for
And
encouraging
he
him.
gets big money for his pieces.
Wow, great.
So what we're looking at, I think, can you go to the upper slide? The next one. So it will be installed as we're seeing there, or
Yes.
with those two little pieces on the bottom?
Well,
Or
those are for forklifting. I don't know how he envisions it.
Mhm.
So what his application says is that it would be placed on so the sculptural dimensions are 30 inches wide, 22 deep, 36 inches height. That would be placed atop a concrete base. This is 24 by 24 by 40 with the 6-inch raised pad at the bottom.
For the forklift.
So that's high enough?
Yeah, for the forklift tongs. So the
Yeah.
total installation height, so it does include both the base and that is 82 inches above the existing
Right,
concrete
right.
pad.
Yeah. So to me, I think the piece itself is great. I would support that. I think the concrete block base is okay, but and I could live with that. The two little pieces at the bottom just make it all feel much less, I don't know, secure, not secure, but just a little.
I think he was making it convenient, and I'm sure
Totally,
that's something
yeah.
that we can discuss with him.
Yeah, no, he talks about why it's there, and it's heavy, it's gonna be hard to move,
A
so.
couple of notches in the concrete block to put straps through, so you could set
Yeah.
and pull the straps out would also probably be acceptable.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a way to change that. That would be my only comment or reservation.
Right, or you could actually put it, I'm just thinking, because my husband's a metal worker and woodworker, is that if you had a couple of 1/2 inch by 3-inch metal pieces on the bottom that it was, it needs enough
Yeah.
clearance for the forklift is what it needs.
Mhm.
Or
He is not
straps,
assuming
yeah.
that it would be bolted down. It is so heavy.
Yeah.
Correct,
Can't move.
correct.
Okay.
No, I understand that. It's getting underneath it without doing
So
a
I-
huge.
we will find
maybe the base, whatever that little base is inset, right? So it's more just a shadow that you
Right.
see. You don't see the.
Oh, so it looks
I
like it's
agree with you,
floating.
and we'll
Right.
work with him to
Yep.
find a better aesthetic solution.
Yeah,
He probably knows
perhaps,
what he's doing.
perhaps two more pieces could be added, one on each end, so it actually looks closed off at the base instead of open like it is, after the forklift lays it in place,
Yeah.
something like that.
Well, I would imagine he can manage figuring that out,
Yeah, well,
Sure.
if he has that much experience.
I think it's a strong visual and material-wise piece, and it definitely looks durable and resistant to vandalism, at least, significantly so, and I certainly would vote for it.
I move that we accept this piece.
I second. Discussion?
How's Jeff doing down there?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you, Barbara.
It's far away. You got to check in once in a while.
Okay, should we call for a vote?
No, I mean, I would be dittoing some of the comments fellow PAC members already made.
Okay, I'm just going to say agreed with others. So I'm taking
Oh.
notes on what you all.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
I like the material. It's really interesting. The piece, I think viewing from different angles is going to be amazing. I like the solidness of the entire construction. I was thinking how with the concrete blocks, which is a 2-foot by 2-foot dimension, that's still going to allow another foot, so to speak, around the base of that on top of the pads too. So just that spacing and scale, I think would work pretty well also.
Okay, can we call for vote?
And
Yes,
I
go
just,
for it.
as a protocol kind of thing, we don't, do we put in the motion, we approve with again, sort of discussion with the artist about that base, or we just approve it and then someone calls them up and says, you're in, but we need to talk about the base.
I would say it's similar to when you approve minutes or when you approve design review things where you can approve with a condition or you can approve with the consideration that the base be resolved.
Right, it doesn't change the motion.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So that would be my suggestion. We vote on the motion knowing, with the condition that base, very little, lowest base piece get discussed with the artist.
I accept the modification.
Okay. Let's call for a vote. Barbara?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Margie? Aye. Lars?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Motion passes.
With the permission, since I know him, I would call and have that conversation with him about
Okay.
setting the concrete block directly onto the base.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you for getting
Yeah.
him to submit that piece.
Yes, thanks, Robert.
Let's hope he doesn't come back and say, oh, no, that's part of the sculpture.
Oh, come on.
If he does, I'll
All the ones in
remove
South
my
don't have
objection.
that. He was trying to accommodate us.
I was just kind of being facetious because we're sort of like, we could be on the same position we were with the one prior.
Okay,
It's
so
like we
Peter,
need a policy.
moving on to
Spot.
Peter Compton.
Uh-huh.
Can I
You said that he had,
ask a question about this one before we start sharing and discussing it?
yeah,
So I was a little confused by some things in their letter there, Peter and Robin's letter, talking about two pieces with potentially a third, which the way I read it would be the poodle. Yet, as you scroll down, they show 1, 2, 3, and the poodle. So I'm seeing like 4 total pieces listed here.
No, I think there's 3, the
pythons.
head and then the two side ones.
Mhm.
And the big eyeball is the
So-
eyeball of that mask, of that head.
So shell obelisk, Cassandra, pythons, celestial poodle. Are you saying
The
that 2 of those
pythons
go
are the-
together?
The pythons I took as the 2 things in the side supports.
Ah,
So
Okay.
And
that-
the other thing,
Can-
Cassandra, whatever, is the center one.
Can you go down
Got it.
to the
Can we go
last
back to the
images
picture?
down there?
So that's almost three sculptures.
So this one, the way I read it is the one we're looking at now. It's the pythons are the things on the side, which they say are, it could exist without them, or if there's space, those are part of it. That's how I read it.
Right.
And then
Yes.
the next one's a close-up of the face.
Mhm.
Yep.
So then this is number 2, and this is number 3.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you. That helps
So they're
me.
separate, except for the pythons in the head. But are they assuming that the 3 of those would fit on the pad together?
Well, they're saying this is one sculpture with 3 pieces, or it's just
Right.
one without the pythons.
Right.
Oh, I see.
Like
Wait,
they're,
so
it's
they're
like
actually
they're
making
open to
3
either one.
submissions.
3
Right.
submissions, and this one's adaptable.
And okay, but this one, as it stands, if we were to consider all 3 of those pieces, they could fit on the pad that we have?
No,
I didn't think
I
so.
don't think
no,
so.
the 2 pythons would have to be on the ground, so it would have to be
Oh.
on a pad, which is on a level area.
Uh-huh, but, okay,
And then we would use, a screw anchor or something like that to tie them down to.
uh-huh. 'Cause that's
Or
kind
we
of-
don't accept the pythons.
Right.
Pardon?
Or we don't accept the submission
don't
with the
accept the
pythons, we
pythons.
just
or
take the
the,
middle.
or the whole thing?
Yeah. 'cause we-
Is that part of what was broken, or is that deliberately?
The poodle was the one that was
Deliberately.
deliberately knocked
deliberately
over
broken
or whatever,
there. Okay,
vandalized in Cloverdale. But it is the phoenix and it has risen from the ashes.
Because we've not had the opportunity before today really to discuss multiple sculptures.
Yeah.
Not all of them are using the pads.
I know,
So some would be on the ground with a different kind of an installation, so, yeah.
that is an interesting
Mhm.
point that came up today.
Mhm.
2 of the 3
Right.
have that possibility.
And is that gonna work with the city's budget and all that stuff to even consider an extra added attraction of another way of?
Peter,
Well, if we wanted to accept that one,
Peter.
I don't think it's really a big budget consideration. When the ground is moist, these screw anchor things are only about that big. And it's
Okay.
just so that somebody can't carry it away so you can lock it down.
Or knock it over?
I think it'd be great having a python and a couple of trees,
Ah,
just saying. But
What? What'd you say?
python crawling up a tree.
Oh, crawling up a tree.
you'll forget
Robert,
that.
didn't you send me a picture of a like a horse's head that they were going to submit? No,
I did not.
I thought you did.
I
Okay.
haven't been in touch with them at all.
So we're considering 3 different sculptures.
We are,
Okay.
So
That's number 2, and then the poodle's number 3.
yes.
Chair Tyson. Sorry.
Okay, how about this? Each of us will have, let's say, a few minutes to discuss what they like, which ones, and so on, and what they think. And then we'll move on to the next person, and then we'll have something in general, rather than bouncing around.
Can I
Barbara,
ask
Why don't you continue for?
question, Chair?
What? Yes.
Would it be better for us to consider each piece separately instead of discussing all 3 at the same time?
Let's see if we can narrow it down by having people talk about all 3, and then we can discuss them individually.
Okay.
And
So
how about,
meaning that
yeah.
we could accept 3 sculptures from this artist?
well, people can make that
That's what I'm saying.
discussion.
It's that we're not just choosing,
Right.
they're not asking us necessarily even to choose one of the 3, but we could actually pick all 3.
I would think so.
Okay.
I would think so. And so if you could keep your comments to what? 3-4 minutes? Make sense? Good? Barbara, 3 to 4 minutes.
Okay. Well, as far as the first one with the head and the 2 pythons, I think it'd be great if we could make it happen and put it all together using all 3 of them, adjacent to one another. The second one, the Nautilus or whatever, that one, that's lovely. I assume that that's the entire sculpture, including the base, those 4 things.
Looks like.
Okay, good. I'm in favor of, I'm not in favor of the poodle. I've seen it a bunch of times. There was a woman who used to own the hotel in Healdsburg who did a huge one that was at the Sonoma County Museum. Same exact, only pink. Do you remember that one? And then who's that artist, a famous international artist that did that?
Jeff
Balloon
Koons.
dogs?
Yeah, huh?
The balloon dogs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
Jeff Koons.
yeah,
Jeff
Jeff Koons.
Yeah.
So I'm not in favor of the poodle.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Robert?
Same as what Barbara said.
Okay,
You yield your 3 minutes to the senator.
okay. Marky?
I yield my time.
Okay.
Uh-oh, Jeff.
Lars?
Let's see. I like them all. I don't like the poodle.
What?
Definitely don't like the poodle.
Poodle?
Yes.
Okay.
Poodle's out.
Yeah, that's. No, I can't say anything about it. It's just, I just don't like. I don't think it's great at all. So, but the other 2 are definitely interesting to me. I think the scale of them is really nice and very appropriate for our garden. I could accept the mask by itself of the other one. I think it's very strong. I think it's stronger than the side pieces, but I am definitely open to I am intrigued by this idea that a sculpture goes outside the boundaries of the pad. And so I would be willing to accept this one to see how that could work.
Thank you. Jeff?
Thanks, Margie. Yeah, I like Cassandra. And I'm just trailering on to some of the previous members' comments about the pythons. If there's another way they could be incorporated, or even another place in the CSG where they might work, perhaps in a different way from the pads. Otherwise, I would just recommend accepting the Cassandra face piece. I like the Nautilus a lot, and I like the poodle as well. So the reasons behind recommending the poodle are we're trying to appeal to a vast audience here. We have a lot of dog lovers in society. We have a lot of lay people that stroll through that park who I think a poodle or whatever species, breed of dog it might be, would be a very accessible piece of art for a lot of lay people. I like the bicolor of it. I like all the inlaid stuff that's going on in the piece. And I think it would be a very striking, very contrasting piece to the other pieces that are already in the CSG and any of the new pieces that we've recommended.
Okay,
Do we have further discussion?
well, I have my comment.
Oh,
I
I'm
have my-
sorry, Marty.
It's okay. So I really like the Nautilus a lot. And I just think it's a great image. And I don't care for the poodle. As far as the mask and the pythons, I am concerned again about durability, especially of the snakes. I can just imagine someone taking something and wanting to hit one of those. And I have to say, I really like a lot of their work, and I've seen that all around, but I don't care for that mask. I don't like the way it's broken personally. It's not just, it's odd. It's uncomfortable. And I don't get it. And thinking about how their work has been broken, that seems to echo in there to me in a not constructive way. Anyway, that's my feelings.
Before other people comment, can I just recommend for those, some of you, or at least one of you, that said you don't like the poodle, can you go a little more in depth why you don't like the poodle?
Well, I would. I'd like to have that opportunity, and I appreciate what you said about it, Jeff. That there's something intriguing, but I thought kids would love it. I like the colors of it too, but you know, I think it borders on plagiarism. I think it's close. It's so close to other poodles that are very, very similar that I think it might just be. I think the artists in the community would be concerned about that. And I know that I can get it, that people would enjoy it, the lay people. And I would want to please their considerations, but that way I was surprised to see it. Because I thought, well, I've seen it so many other times. And in addition to Coons, and I wish I could remember that woman's name that did it in Healdsburg. They own the small, very hotel, and the slaughterhouse. Remember the slaughterhouse gallery for a while? It was a pig slaughtering house. It was she that owned that. Anyway, but I'm, coming from an artistic, I just don't want artists to think, wait a minute, you guys took something that really, I think it's invalid.
So I'm looking at the clock, and we
We have
have
15 minutes.
15 minutes, and we need to hear from the planning department report and agenda items for future meetings. So, and there's, all three of these. So I'm not
Maybe
sure.
We should have
Would you like
motions.
You'd like to have some motion?
I think we should get this
Okay.
done.
Oh, yeah, can I ask one more thing?
Yes.
Do you know the pythons, is it possible, would it be ineffective just to have one of them rather than two?
I wouldn't ask the artist to do that.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the Nautilus sculpture for the CSG.
I second. I was about to make the same. Discussion? Vote? Barbara?
Aye.
Robert? Margie? Aye. Lars?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Good. Oh, okay. We
I
got
would
that
like
one.
to make a motion that we accept the Cassandra piece and the side pieces and work with the artists about which pad and how they can be placed the way the artists envisioned the totality of the sculpture.
I'll second the motion.
Discussion?
Got that,
I
Karen?
would
Laura?
just maybe add the condition that if the pythons can't work, we still accept the mask.
I'll accept that modification to the motion.
Does
I
any-
second that.
Does anybody have any?
Sorry.
What?
Sorry, hold on. Again, the motions are going by a little bit too fast for me. Okay, so Chair Brent moved to accept Cassandra and the pythons and work with the artists to figure out how to put them in the park.
Right.
Um,
And if
Harris
it's not
seconded.
possible to cite the pythons with it, that we accept Cassandra without them. Did I get that right, Lars?
Yes.
Does anyone have any comment about durability of the pythons and vulnerability?
No, they've had pieces broken. They know what they're doing. They know the risk they accept. And they've submitted, so I don't see it as a problem.
Okay, and so the amendment was that if the pythons don't work, to still accept the Cassandra piece.
Yes.
Any other comments? Is that the basic attitude?
As the second, do you accept the modification?
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? Call for a vote. Barbara?
Aye.
Aye.
Robert? Margie, nay.
Lars, aye.
Lars? Jeff?
Aye.
Motion passes.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the poodle sculpture for the CSG.
Okay, is there a second? No second. So motion does not continue.
Right.
All right,
Correct.
very good.
So right now you have the poodle hanging out there as a, you haven't done, so of the submissions,
Yes,
the Nautilus has been accepted unanimously. The Cassandra with the Pisons, if they work, if not, just the Cassandra has been accepted. No motion has been made about the poodle yet.
there was a motion and there was no second.
I know.
Yeah.
So
it needs a motion.
Oh,
to
it needs a
deny.
motion to deny. Does anybody want to make that motion?
So moved.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
All right, discussion? Barbara?
Aye.
Robert? Margie, aye. Lars?
Aye.
Jeff?
Nay.
Motion carries. Is denied. So there's two from that artist.
Right. So
Rather
we
than
potentially
three.
have 4.
So we potentially have 4, depending on how the first one works out. But we definitely have 3. And for a future discussion, we could put on the agenda for the next meeting to discuss Robert's suggestion about Warren's sculptures.
Mhm.
Which would have to be permanent if we're going to haul it up from.
So then we would need a discussion about the format
accepting-
and permanence of CSG
Yeah,
sculptures.
will we accept a permanent sculpture in the
Or do
CSG?
we want to organize that for other ones as well?
Or
Well, I
does-
think we
we have it
need
for
to have a
one-
fundamental principle. Will
Yes.
we accept a permanent
Right.
piece?
Right.
Oh,
And then we can discuss what that
Just
might
accept
be.
or request.
I have a question about that
Yes.
piece, Robert. Do you know the approximate dimensions?
It's probably in this thing. I don't, from what I'm looking at online, but Warren would know.
mhm.
Okay, can we,
I mean, it's pretty big.
Just curious.
I'm guessing from the picture and having seen other ones, there's one out at Doran. It's got to be 6 feet tall.
okay, can we go on to item 6, agenda? We did that. Any other agenda items for future meeting?
I would really like to figure out a way that we can consistently respond to the artist when we are suggesting modifications.
Okay, you can put that on the agenda.
So we don't have to
Discussion with
read this.
artists about modifications.
Hey, Margie, this is where I can
Oh.
take notes, but I'll meet with the
Yes,
new
got
chair
it.
to talk
Sorry.
about when
Yes,
to
with
agendize
Robert.
things. Thank you.
Yes,
Oh,
okay.
But hey, sorry if I missed something there, but so for the CSG, we have 3, maybe 4 new pieces. So we still have a empty pad.
Right.
And you've brought up Warren Arnold's piece, which if we get that, it would have to be a permanent. Would be a permanent installation probably.
I think considering that it was, I just don't
Yeah.
see suggesting that, because I know
Right.
Warren doesn't want it back. 'Cause
Right.
I had that conversation.
Okay.
but
So,
that-
and just to clarify, a permanent sculpture for the city regardless of location?
Well,
Just to,
The Arts
can that
Center-
should that be part of the discussion?
the
or-
Art Center owns it. And it could potentially be on the Art Center property after it's in the CSG and get moved that way. And that's part of a discussion that could be had with them about it.
Right.
But, I mean, there's a lot of discussion. And I don't know that Ventana still has it.
Mhm.
And
But so-
did
but
you
my-
say there are also other
Yeah.
ones of Warrens that are possibilities?
Seven more that are still in their original sites and are
Ah,
staying there.
I see, they're staying,
It's just that
okay.
Ventana did a remodel and took it down
Right.
and put it in storage.
Can you
And I
find
hope
that
that's,
Can you find out whether it's actually a possibility?
I can.
Yeah, even before we talk to Warren.
I will call Ventana and see if I can find somebody who knows anything.
And then
So
also, we need,
I'm bringing this up just as the question of what's next, right? So we have one pad that's empty still. So is this, we're just done for today because we've had 3 submissions and we've gone through them and we just agendize what's next for the CSG
And the
on the
deadline's
next meeting.
over.
Is that what we're doing?
Next meeting's agenda.
and also I think that we need to communicate with the artists of the sculptures we have voted positively, well, of
Mhm.
all the other ones.
Mhm.
And so as chair, do you want to do that, Robert? And with Carrie?
Well, he's already offered to do one with the marble or the granite sculpture, right?
Uh-huh.
And Jeff has offered to do one,
Right.
Mirka. So
But
there's only
the
one. There's
Comptons,
one of
will you communicate with the Comptons
I
as
certainly
chair?
can. Sure,
And work with Carrie on that?
sure, absolutely.
I do have a question about the whale. Once the Sebastopol Center for the Arts is clued in that they own it,
Mhm.
do they have, I mean, they may not want us to,
There are a whole lot of moving pieces.
okay.
I have a
Okay.
question about the CSG, if I
Yes,
may.
Yes.
So with the prior approval of sculptures that are now in the CSG, I recall within the timeline, we conducted a meeting out there and had a discussion about which pads we thought we would recommend that each piece be sited on.
Mhm,
And I would
mhm,
recommend that we do that again.
mhm.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Yes.
That's a good idea.
And that can be in the letter that we will be making.
Now, some pads would not suit the Cromptons with the pythons. But I believe there is one pad that will, and that would be the one that had the sculpture that broke.
Can we reserve this
Okay.
for the time we actually meet at the site? But I
sure.
appreciate your thinking
So
about that.
in the time in between this meeting and next meeting, perhaps the answer about the bicycle sculptures could be resolved. And if we did meet out at the site, we could discuss what we would like to go where. If it's not resolved, then we could still meet at the site or decide not to.
If
Yeah, I'll
we-
get on that before
If we meet at the
Christmas.
site, I will bring 5 26-inch circles with me.
Okay. I need to
Sit.
go on. We have about 4 minutes for the planning department report.
Okay, so just to clarify, and I did take a couple of notes. January 9th, we did have on our forward agenda to the installation logistics, which includes the what goes where. And Public Works has said that the January 22nd works for them. It looks like most of these art pieces are actually ready to go, so that's actually could happen pretty quickly. And with that, it could also include a reconsideration of the one sculpture application if that's ready to go.
So just to repeat, January 9th.
January 9th is your meeting. Yeah. Yeah. And so whether that is here or at the site, because I know we've traditionally met at the site to look at the different and decide what sculpture goes where. We can figure that out later, but that's probably where we would meet. We could adjourn and come back and forth, but usually we just have our meeting at the site,
And
whether permitting or on the
Whether-
patio as we
Weather
have.
defending,
Yeah.
of course. I would recommend if possible, to visit the site and with these photographs and sculptures in mind, so that you already have ideas about what you go where, rather than have to do it when we meet.
Great. Okay. And then we will also put on most likely the discussion of other CSG, how to handle the other and permanent sculpture and all that.
Well, okay, so when do we want to meet and sort of figure out which thing's going to go in which pad?
The 9th, not the 9th meeting.
Oh, okay,
At the site.
okay,
Our
right.
next scheduled meeting.
then, right. So shall I ask the Art Center to let us use their room again so that?
That would be great if you
we have
could,
an
yeah.
indoor?
Very nice.
That would be great.
And we need to get the city council to approve for the CSG.
Thank you. That is actually the other component of it that is in the
Yes.
schedule. So yes, so usually we put that on consent, but we do have the sculptures go too. And so January 16th would be the next city council member meeting. And so we can prepare that based on this meeting. And then if the other sculpture is added in, we would still have time to add that before the January 16th,
Great.
which then leads to the end of January installation being viable.
Is this going to be the first city council meeting of the new council to consider the artwork?
Well, there's no changes to council members. There was, and this, I'll just go right into my planning director report. They did reorganize at their December 5th meeting. So the new mayor is former Vice Mayor Rich is now the mayor. And Councilmember Stephen Zolman was elected as vice mayor. So there's no change in personnel though, so they all kind of know that about the sculpture. There's no orientation that needs to happen in terms of their process for that. So yeah, so we'll have that on the consent calendar for January 16th.
Okay. We have 2 minutes if anybody has anything pressing. If not, I will call this meeting with my thanks and goodbye as chair.
Thank you, Margie.
Adjourned.
Ooh.